Is Nicole Brandon with Hourglass Brides, and it's so wonderful to have you here on today's show. I can't tell you, I'm so excited about today's guest. We have today Amanda Rain, and Amanda is talking about the unspeakable. And over the past few months, as we've been doing these shows, you'll have, very often have guests that are on the show that I will tell you that I've seen their work and I know their work and I've experienced their work and how remarkable and incredible that they are. And truly, we've brought in the very best and the very top experts in their fields, and I'm so happy always to share that with you on this show. And rarely on this planet, in this world, is there a time that you actually meet somebody and there is such a synergy and such a beautiful connection and something that you say, I want to know this person no matter what. There's something about their light, their energy, the way that they communicate, the way that they radiate, who they are, and the way that they emanate into the world, that you just say, this is a gem. This is one of the people that sparkle and shine throughout the planet. And I know that I was taught many years ago in energy, people that are lighthouses, and those lighthouses shed lights not only on the cruise ships and on the big boats, but also on the small boats. And they're the lighthouses that shed light over all the houses and over all the cities in the darkness. And sometimes in your life you meet someone who is a lighthouse, someone whose light goes so far beyond who they are and just radiates throughout cities, throughout towns, throughout everybody they meet. And I felt that way when I met Amanda. She is a true light on this planet. Her energy, her information, her love, her heart, her support, her wisdom sheds light on so many people. And so when I heard that she was doing the unspeakable, I couldn't imagine a better subject to share with you. And so I'm so thrilled to be talking with her today and to have the opportunity to have her share all of her insight with you. And she really is just a true gem. She earned a bachelor's degree in speech communication at Wayne State University in Detroit. And there she explored communication as the framework for constructing our world. And imagine doing that, exploring communication as the framework for constructing our world, and how different our lives would be if we communicated at a better and a deeper level. That training gave her a language to express her life experience, and that is a tool that she has used to empower others ever since. She debated on the collegiate circuit. She earned a semifinalist award at the American Debate Association tournament in her very first year, as well as placing in several other tournaments and earning multiple speaker awards. And Amanda understands how important strategy is within communication. So we'll talk to her about that today, about strategy. And then for 10 years, Amanda worked to end the drug war, and she founded the importance of speaking the unspeakable within her work. And over the years, she's worked with the Americans for Safe Access, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and most recently with the Amsterdam University and the Prop 19 campaign. She's been interviewed by everybody, by ABC, NBC, CBS, CBC, Reason TV, the doctors, as well as the documentary Legalize This. She is writing a book on speaking those unspeakable things, in which she shares her journey of finding light in the unspeakable shadows of her own life and then all the freedom that has followed. Her insightful understanding of the struggles of the soul and the pathways to freedom comes to her own experience, and she has risen, just like the phoenix, from the ashes of her life to heal and to transform and to fly again. And I'll tell you, boy, does she fly high. There is such a joy. She's one of these people that you look at, you just smile, and you don't even know why you're smiling, but it's just because she's in the room. She just has this thing that makes you happier just because she's there. She inspires, everything. That she gives us the courage to face our own personal and our collective pain. She teaches us how to free ourselves, how to walk with honesty, how to walk with integrity and truth, and how to be one human family. Her voice offers hope for the spirit, and it is certainly medicine for the soul. And so I just truly can't think of a better subject than how to speak the unspeakable, and I can't think of a more dynamic and more loving guest than our guest today, which is Amanda Rain. So, Amanda, thank you so much for being with us, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole, and along with all of those beautiful words, thank you so much.
Oh, no, it's my absolute pleasure, truly. It's when I think about you and I think about the first time I met you, and it really is one of those things where you say, who is that person in the room? And there is such light that just emanates and shines from you. And that's really when I think of you like a lighthouse, that you just spread this light wherever you go, and people that are in darkness, you're able to guide them to the next place. And people that are really doing well, you're able to illuminate who they are in such a beautiful way. And so it's such an honor and such a blessing and such a gift to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you for that reflection.
My pleasure. So first, how did you come up with, I love speaking the unspeakable, and I think that it's one of the toughest things in the world is how do we say those things that we've always wanted to say, and how did you even begin?
Well, it was, kind of looking at the overview of all of my life experiences, and, I'm apprenticed to a shamanic path, and within that work, there's much talk of speaking the unspeakable, of how do we be real with people in the moment when it's necessary, so that way we can have real connections with people that are based on honesty and integrity. And so it is that work, and when I heard that, I was like, yes, that is what I feel I do. I'm originally from Detroit, and Detroit people are often very outspoken, and so there is definitely part of that within the way that I was raised to be outspoken. And over the years, with the training and with the spiritual work that I've done, also moving to the West Coast, I've been able to soften some of the harder edges that I carried and be able to really surrender into the beauty of life, and at the same time still holding this edge of we need to be real with each other, we need to be honest with each other, and it's through that we actually respect each other. And so when I was looking at, what is my unique gift to offer this world? What am I here to do? That's what came is to help people speak the unspeakable in terms of, both from my advocacy work and helping people be more effective at speaking their truth and speaking out for change and being a positive force in our world. And then also in our intimate relationships with each other, with our families, with coworkers, and being able to have healthy, happy connections with people. And so that is what inspired this work.
I love that. And when you talk about intimacy, I think that is the most difficult place to share your feelings and your thoughts, whether it be something horrible that happened in your past to you or something that you believe in, that you see the invisible, or even a desire or a passion, or something that you have that you think somebody is not going to think that it's right or love you the same way if you were to share that. And so how do you open to intimacy, and how do you be vulnerable with somebody, especially when there's so many influences that say we can't trust or somebody's going to love us less if we share all of who we are or say what we're really thinking or feeling?
Yes. It's so important for us to step into intimacy, and one of my teachers likes to say, intimacy is into me, see. So that's when we open ourselves for people to see us for all of our vulnerability, all of our strengths, all of our weaknesses, the challenges we overcome, our beauty. And it's a vulnerable place to be in and of itself, because we have this innate need for love and belonging, in the words of Brene Brown, who does research into shame and shame resiliency and how to be connected. And with that need for love and belonging, when we put ourselves out in openness, we have a lot of concern around what people are going to think about us, whether we're going to be accepted, whether we will have that love and belonging that we so deeply and innately need and desire. And so part of the work of being able to do that is to love ourselves so fully and completely that we know that those who accept us are the ones that are deserving of our deepest connections, and that those aren't going to be broken by our humanity, our imperfections, those flaws that give us character and make us be who we are, and that actually are much of our brilliance and our beauty. And with that work, and for those who don't accept and love us, then, that's okay. Not everyone is going to like us or love us, and it's okay. There are so many people in the world. So once we can really love ourselves, we start to understand that some people we will align with and others we won't. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make us wrong. It's just not an alignment.
Okay, but if you're with somebody that, I'm sorry for interrupting, if you're with someone, though, that you're aligning with and you still are afraid, like as a woman, how do you ask for what you want? And if you're not in alignment with somebody, how much can you say safely?
So that's where the strategy piece comes in terms of being, and strategy really comes down to being thoughtful and thinking about, what is your truth, aligning with your core truth first. And that way you can bring that into the conversation, and then, you put a little thought into what it really needs to be shared. And when you're looking at what needs to be shared, you're looking at what is actually pertinent to this conversation and what is pertinent to their decision making, if they're making a decision based on something that we are offering or speaking of our needs, or what's important for them to know about where we're at and how we feel. And so when we put it into that context, we can be much more effective when we bring things forward. It's true that when the closer someone is to us, the more susceptible we are to being afraid to share and open ourselves. And, I was just speaking with a brother yesterday, and, he feels, he's having trouble being intimate, to open, to allow people to see him. And in that way, one of the things that I shared with him is that we all have things that we are hard on ourselves for. We all have things that don't meet our own standards. And oftentimes our standards are much higher than those who love us. The people who love us love us. And there are hard moments that we have in this world. It's just part of life, is to have, moments that are a little more challenging than others. And when we can be honest, straightforward, and speak from our heart, we can move through those challenges with greater ease and in ways that will actually deepen those connections, to where we know that no matter what happens in the future, we can get through it because we've gone through this particular challenge and we've been able to speak our fears to each other. A lot of what fear is being afraid of the unknown. And so to counter that, we have to make the unknown known. And what happens is when we have something difficult to share, a lot of times we spend a lot of time spinning in our mind, creating stories, creating how they're going to respond to it, or, what's going to happen if we share our truth, instead of speaking it and actually being in the, real connection between two people and navigating that out and figuring that out together, as opposed to one person, working it up. And what happens when we do that, when we create those stories within ourselves, is we end up making ourselves so nervous and so afraid that we add that much more fear into the situation. So if we were to just speak it, kind of do the self-work first of what's my truth, what's important here, what's important to me, what's important for this other person to know. And then once that's clear, going into the dialogue, and if you're, what I do when I'm really afraid or don't feel like I'm going to be articulate, because it's easy to talk about this, but when you have your emotions connected into this, when you have your love and your heart connected into this, I still get tongue-tied. And so what I do is I tell people, this is really hard for me. I don't necessarily know how to do this or how to say this well. And so if you could just bear with me while I speak this, and if you could not take anything personal, and that if something comes off a little hard, that, we can talk about that and we can address that together. That this is something that I really need to speak to you right now.
That's so beautiful to say, this is new for me, and I'm vulnerable in the moment, and I'm stepping into this, and I'm being brave and, sharing my truth with you because I care, or whatever that is. And, and I love that you say don't take anything personally, because that, I guess, was one of my questions, because I know I've heard you speak about that women can speak their boundaries powerfully and with grace. And I know when you get scared, it doesn't sound so very powerful. And sometimes when you're tripping over your tongue, it doesn't sound so very graceful. But if you're saying it from your heart, then it's both those things, right?
Yes, completely. And so if we were to speak our boundaries and we were to want to do so gracefully, if there's like a gentleness in the situation, we could say, thank you. It's quite a compliment that you want to do that with me or have that desire. I'm not able to fulfill that at this time, but I want you to know that I really appreciate you bringing that to me or asking me for that. And the more that we can also thank people, like if someone were to say, can I kiss you? The more that we're able to say thank you for asking, the more often we'll be able, we'll have that question asked to us. Because one of the things that we're coming out of is kind of the way that we're used to living and the way that we see things unfold around us and in media and out, in places of our world, is that men, they're more, especially with the energetic of the masculine, it's to go after what you want. That's how men are largely trained. And women are largely trained to not use our voice, to, really be in service to our relationship, which I think is a beautiful thing. And we have to be able to speak our needs, speak our desires, and speak our boundaries. And so the more that women speak up and men open the space and ask those questions, the more we'll step into healthy, juicy connections where we can have what we want. We can have our desires fulfilled through doing that work. And so it's important for us to be able to speak. And, sometimes it's really challenging. And so it's important for us to follow our intuition. And if something, if we're not really in alignment with something, then saying, wait, let's pause for a moment. And if you're in a heated moment with someone, it could be that you hug them tightly and just say, will you just hold me for a moment? I just really need to be held. So instead of stopping what's happening and saying, wait, this isn't working for me, move it into an action, because men are very action-oriented. Move it into an action that the man can feel like he is supporting the woman, because men want us to be happy. They want us to feel fulfilled and to be satisfied, and they have so much that they gain from our happiness when they love us. And so it's being able to support them and getting our needs met and being able to speak them powerfully and with grace.
All of this is so amazing to me, and it's such great information. And we have so many women on the show that are starting over again in relationships or people that have been married a couple times and they don't really know what happened because they just didn't know how to communicate their needs. And then we have people who have been abused and are needing to learn to trust love, and it's okay to trust love and to trust men. So for women that are just finding their voice, that they're just, this is a new skill, this is new, like teaching a baby to walk or whatever, and that they're just taking steps forward in finding their voice and communication, what would be a tip or a tool or one of the first steps that you would say to somebody that's this is brand new and they so desire to want to communicate with somebody in a way that they're being heard and that they're being loved and that their voice is being received?
I would say to ask for patience from those closest to you. So again, it's naming your vulnerabilities, naming your fears. When we are able to speak our fears and when we're able to speak our experience, it essentially has the ability to put us at ease once we name it. And so then we can actually address it directly and with conscious awareness. And so, tell people, hey, I am in need of claiming my voice. And so as I go through this journey, I may come off harsh at times because I'm finding my way. It's kind of like when we're starting anything new, just like life, when we're a child, we start to, we kind of take things too far, and we don't take things far enough in order to find our comfort zone, in order to find our way and what works for us. And so letting people know, hey, I'm in a learning curve right now, and this is really important for me. And if it's someone who is engaging love again after abuse or, a broken marriage, telling someone, I really want to have this connection with you. It's very valuable to me, and I want you to know that, I'm healing from a lot of abuse and trauma. And so the more that we can have open communication, so that way when I get triggered, that I can come to you and say, hey, I'm triggered. I need a little space, so we don't just, disappear for a bit. Or say, I'm really triggered and I can't have this conversation with you. And then come back to it at another time. And just asking for that support that we need. One of the important things in terms of men and women is we speak different languages. We're wired differently, and we have different aspects of our physicality that impact the way that we communicate. Women use way more words than men, and there are many other differences. And so when we're going to a man, like if we need to process something, like something's weighing on us, or we need support, or if we just want to unload after a rough day at work, or whatever it is, it's better for us to call a sister, to call a woman friend, because we speak the same language, so they'll be able to be support for us in the way that we need. Men want to fix things. That's what they do. They're action-oriented. You give them a problem, they're going to start to solve it. And that's their medicine. And so if we just need to process, we should call a sister. If we have something that needs action taken, and we're not attached to how it's going to look, because we don't want to micromanage the things that men do for us, then we take that to the man. And so when you take something vulnerable or something where you're triggered, you could say, I'm really triggered and this is what I need from you, whether it's space or will you just hold me. These different things that we can ask for to be fulfilled, and that way they can feel like they have a role, they have a purpose, they're supporting us, and they can feel empowered in that as we empower ourselves.
That's such great advice. I know that men, even words that we use, they use differently. And I was told Amanda Armstrong was talking about one day, in her incredible text work, and she was talking about that when a man is finally ready to make a commitment to a woman, that he will often say something like, that I care about you, like to assure her that he loves her, to assure her that he wants to move forward, that he wants in a relationship, and that when a woman is ready to leave a relationship, she says to a man, that I care about you. But she's ready to leave. So as soon as a woman hears that a man cares, she goes, oh, he's leaving. And right away she shuts down. And now all of a sudden she's disappeared from the relationship, and that, now he's taking steps forward and she's becoming a bitch and spinning out of control or whatever that is that she does. And he said, what happened? He finally tells her he cares. And so it's funny, even just the use of words, that we use words differently.
Completely. And so the more, that's where it's important for us to ask clarifying questions. One of the things that my debate training has been helpful for is to be able to see how ideas or concepts, or in the debate world they're called arguments, interact with each other, and how when things are spoken, what meaning can you pull from it, or what meaning is missing from what is spoken. And so men, using so many less words than us, they'll say something and another man will understand it completely, but the woman will be left wondering, well, I could see this going in 5 different directions. I'm not sure where this is going. I mean, I've had the conversation with men where I say, when I look at our conversations over a span of time, I could think that you're really into me, you're not into me at all, and or you're indifferent, or you might be, or a little, or you're open, or you're not open, and I'm really confused. And so I just need to ask you directly, how do you feel about me? And this particular man that I had this conversation with was really grateful that I was direct with him and that I was able to name the lack of clarity so we could have the conversation then to get clear. And so it's asking these clarifications of, you said this, what does this word mean? Right? You said,
that's great. I've never thought to do that, but how genius to actually say that. They said, one of the things that I remember hearing when I was studying so much about literature and English and the true form of the English language is that the most difficult word to learn in the English language for somebody that has come here from another country and they're learning English is the word beat. And it's true, and I've read that in so many books and from so many universities because there's so many meanings. I can beat you in a race, or I could beat you up, or there's a heartbeat, or there's a music beat, or cops walk on a beat, or you can eat a beat. And so there are just so many, it's almost like they ran out of words and said, let's just use that beat word again. But if you were here from some other language, how would you know that cops walk on a beat, or that I beat you in a race, or that there's a music? They're so different in their meaning. And so to ask somebody, what does that mean to you when you say you care? What is caring? Whatever that is. And so I love when you say that and when you ask. And so for people that can speak, people that for years have clear communication, what happens if you want to say something like, you talk about pillow talk, or we want to talk about sexual intimacy or our fantasies or our desires. And so is there a way to share that? And is that different than sharing your heart or saying, ouch, that hurt? Or that I'm triggered right now. Is sharing something that you desire or your fantasies or whatever, is that the same sort of communication?
You could definitely run parallels. If you have a fantasy, you could snuggle up to your partner and say, I'd like to share something that, and a lot of times our fantasies are something that is at our edge. If it weren't at our edge, it wouldn't be we would already be doing it. And so you could say, I'm kind of nervous, or I feel embarrassed, or you could name how you're feeling. And I want to express this to you because if you're open to this, it would really excite me to be able to have this experience with you. And so then you could go into it, and you could, a lot of times what is commonly thought of is when we talk about things, we take out the romantic juice, that sultry energy. And it really just comes down to how we do it. And so if you were to snuggle up to your partner and you were to start tracing on his chest and start talking about your fantasies, it would create so much electric energy between the two of you that it would be really sweet. And so when we want, to be touched in a certain way, we can guide the hand to go to the area that we want to be touched and just say, this is how I want to be touched. And for men, they love, from the men that I've spoken with about this, they love to be told what we like, because women are kind of this mystery. I feel like women, we are mysteries unto ourselves in many ways. And so for a man who doesn't have the wiring, or, they don't have a womb, they don't have a vagina, they don't have breasts in the way that we have them. And so it's a mystery. And so the more that we can unlock the box of mystery that surrounds us and invite them in, the more they appreciate it. And so, they want to hear our voice. They desire hearing what makes us excited, what turns us on, what is going to bring us the greatest pleasure that we can think of. And so when we open that dialogue, the first time that we open these dialogues, it's the scariest. But then the more you do it, the more practice you get, the more experience, the easier it gets. And so, it's like building up that courage and building, and courage being, the heart is the root word of courage. So leading from the heart and stepping out to be open and vulnerable and saying, I really want this. And it can create so much juice in intimacy when we're able to speak our desires and how we want to be touched.
I think that's one of the questions that we get all the time, and one of the most difficult things is, how do you share your fantasies? How do you share your desires? How do you share your whatever that is? I had a man the other day that I highly respect, and we were having a conversation with a group of men and women, and he just posed at the table, what made 50 Shades of Grey work, or why are women attracted to this, or what, and it's interesting for any man to be asking, how does a woman want to communicate, or how does she express, or how come women don't talk to us, or and so to be able to say, but I love that you start with the innocence of, I'm kind of nervous, or I'm sort of embarrassed about this, but it's so feminine, and it's so vulnerable, and it's so curious. And it's so adorable, and it's so sweet, and yet it's so sexy at the same time.
Completely. And, women represent for men the taproot to vulnerability. They don't have that natural connection that we have. And so when we're able to connect into our vulnerability and we're able to bring that into a relationship, that's one of the things that they have a need from us. They need that, and they gain access to that through us and through us being vulnerable. And so then when we open the door for us to share our fantasies, that can give them permission to share their fantasies. And from there it can be an adventure and an exploration into what our desires are. And when we can, especially in long-term relationships, when you're continually having to meet each other and re-meet each other and keep things juicy and find things to, spice up what can become a monotonous day-to-day of living, stepping into the fantasy world is a really powerful way to keep that connection strong and keep it juicy and keep it alive and keep you asking, what is today going to bring? And that will keep the excitement of the relationship alive for a long time.
And I love the enthusiasm, and I just love the spontaneity and the desire of that and the opening of that. It's like the unfoldment of each other and the gift and the magical, essence of who you are, and there's nothing sexier, more beautiful. And so I think that's perfect. And then, I've got a question of, so when you're teaching people how to ask for things and how to be supported in the communication, and I think that everything that you've said is just so perfect. I'm taking notes. I'm going to practice this in my own life. But how do you not become codependent as men are supporting you? How do you fall into stepping forward in your power and not wavering back and letting a man, whatever that would look like?
So we have a big pattern within our collective. It doesn't, not everyone has this, but so many of us have struggles with codependency, where we get into a relationship and then all of a sudden everything becomes about the other person, and then we fall into these patterns where, there's the thing of codependency is there's the persecutor, the enabler, and the victim. And so when we ask for something, if it doesn't get fulfilled, and then we go into victim of, why aren't you doing this for me? This is, this is maybe even part of our agreement in our relationship, and you're not coming through on it. And then we come into this place from a place of neediness. And so one of the things that has helped me on my journey is to make sure that I'm maintaining a balance. I had, in one of my relationships, my partner he said, you don't need me. He's like, I don't know like, what do you do for a woman who doesn't need him? And I stopped kind of like dead in my tracks, because I've just been so independent for so long at that point where I didn't need him. And so then I was like, okay, he needs me to need him. And what it did was it opened up all of my codependent patterns, and it got ugly. And so one of the things is I harvested that relationship, because of course it did not last. When I harvested that relationship, I said, oh, he just needed to be able to do things for me. He didn't need me to need him. Oh, I get it. Okay. And so it's maintaining a balance of continuing to do for ourselves, so that way we are still fueling ourselves. That way, because when we come into relationship, it's, there's the one, and not even in gender, but just one person to one person, we are each individuals within that. And so it's important for us to maintain a taproot into our own unique individuality. And at the same time, we come together in relationship, and that ends up creating almost like a third entity, right? It's like the relationship is its own being, its own essence. And so when we hold ourselves as unique individuals, coming to this relationship to create something greater than ourselves, something greater than we as individuals can create, it holds that balance of I am still who I am, and I am coming to the relationship, in service to this relationship while I'm still holding integrity for my own needs. And so continuing to fill the needs for ourselves, and also maintaining a sexual relationship with ourselves. So that way it doesn't all get put on our partner. And that is, I think, something that commonly happens. And so if if you look at sexuality as the core of our essence, it's the act that brings us into the world. It's such a core part of who we are. When we can maintain a connection within that for ourselves, that doesn't necessarily exclude our partner, but definitely is something that we feed ourselves with, then we can maintain greater connection to ourselves throughout and maintain that relationship with ourselves. And when we can do that, we can engage in co-empowerment, which is stepping into, instead of persecutor, victim, and enabler, we have challenger, supporter, listener. So we can listen to each other. We can see how we can be in support to the relationship. And we can challenge each other. Say, hey, that didn't work for me. Let's do better. What can we do that will, have you feeling fulfilled and have me feeling fulfilled?
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Now, I love your work, I have to tell you. The idea of speaking the unspeakable and everything that you've said is so opening and so right on, and such an incredible tool and key and technique for sharing your heart and sharing your soul and getting closer to the person that you love, especially at a time when people are getting married and they're sharing a life together. And what better time to learn to communicate with your spouse or the person that you love. And so how does someone find you? Because I just think that your work is just gold. Do you do workshops? Do you do private sessions?
I do both. I have a website. It's found at www.speaking-the-unspeakable.com. And I do workshops. I'm based out of Portland, and so I do workshops here in person, and then I also do them over the phone with teleclasses. And I also do one-on-one work, either through the various mediums of technology as well as one-on-one in person. And so, I love working with people. One of my gifts, as I've been deepening my connection into this work, one of my gifts is helping people find words and building their courage to be able to speak their truth. I feel like that's the jewel of my medicine that I have to offer people. And when they bring a challenge to me And then I can say, well, here's, 3 or 4 different ways that you could speak this. What's your way? And then I have them practice with me so they can build their courage of like, oh, I can do this. I can speak this. And then I also help with, sharing tips and tricks to, maintain that courage as you actually go into the conversation or the dialogue, or just even with the relationship with self and our internal dialogue. And so it's a beautiful thing. I love what I do, and I love working with people and supporting them, because I want to see us be happy and healthy and be able to engage each other from a place of truth and honesty and fulfilling relationships. That's really what it's about, is being able to have fulfilling relationships that allow us to deepen our connections with each other. I actually have a workshop for women, a Speaking the Unspeakable for Women Only, coming up, a teleclass this Wednesday. And so if women are interested, they can email me at speak, and of course it's speaking, like using your voice, speak, rain, R-A-I-N, rain like the weather, at gmail.com.
Okay, we'll put that up on our website as well, because I love to be able to share that information with people. I think that your choice of words and the selection of words, and each word you use is a word that's so opening and so revealing, and it feels so safe. And at some point I'd love to talk to you, because one of the programs that we offer women is how to write their vows. And we have a whole service to teach women to write their vows, and because a lot of women don't say what they want to say because they're afraid they're too emotional, or a lot of women don't say what's in their heart because they're too embarrassed. And we had a minister on last week, and he was amazing, and he was talking about what's the difference between a covenant and a contract, and that a covenant, you're really stepping in, and a covenant, and that when you're saying your vows, it's not a compliment like pretty dress, I think you're sexy. It's really that you can say those things, that you can, write a letter, a love letter to one another and share it. But when you're taking your vows, it's really words that are in your heart, what you're stepping into, what you're willing to do. And the words that you use are truly so rich, and they're so meaningful, and they're so deep, and they're so connecting, that I would love you to come be part of that and, help us with the vow service, because I just think that the words that you have really do speak to the heart.
I would love that. I would love that.
That would just be so wonderful. And then, we were talking about earlier, is there a way to navigate really difficult situations with a man? Is there...
Yeah, completely. So one of the things that I find helpful is to first, when both people recognize that we speak different languages, it opens the door for us to be able to name that. And when we can name that, like if we're, as women who use many, many words to say something, if it becomes too much for the man, say, I need you to just pause for a moment. I totally want to hear what you're saying, and I love you so much that I want to hear what you're saying, and I'm a little overloaded right now. And so if we could just pause and let me integrate what you've already said, that will really help me be able to be present with what you're saying and be able to continue listening with the depth and the honesty, and the openness to receive it, that I can hold. And so can I just have this moment? Or even going and walking around the block, and so that way they can become clear of what it is that they're needing, So, and one of the things, too, is when we have something big that we're going to basically drop on someone, when we need to express something that's really challenging, like maybe it's a relocation of one of the partners, and it's challenging, and the other person's not going to want to leave, and that, and so it's being able to speak it, doing the internal work first, whatever it is, doing the internal work, the core truth for you yourself, what's important to you within that, and what's going to be important for them, and of course it's naming that and being open to maybe it's different than you think it is, and so that's where the direct conversation comes in, is to clarify what the difference between what we think and what's actually true. And so when we can start from that, and then we can ask for the space that we need, and we can ask for the things that we need within that. And so, knowing our differences and then being able to name them throughout can really be helpful. And once we do name it and we land something, it's I feel like it's very much we land something on them. We speak something and it drops on people. When you have something big and sometimes heavy or just a big deal, it's something that people have to integrate. We have to take a moment to integrate that, and that's especially true for men. And so women, we can see the many different, like men can say one thing and we'll think 20 things about that one thing. Our mind works that way. For men, it's very single-focused, like in the work of Alison Armstrong. And when we can recognize that, we can give them space. So we speak our core truth, what's important to us, and then we let it be in the space. It's that pregnant pause. So we let it be in the space, and we allow that, and it's often awkward, which is why we like to continue to speak, because it makes us feel more comfortable. But ultimately, that person that we're speaking to needs to integrate that and needs some time and space so that way they can come into what is their truth within that, and then they can speak that back to us. And that's important. So it's taking, a lot of breath, breathing really deeply through the challenging things and hitting the pause moment when you need to integrate, and naming how we feel throughout the encounter so that way if something is spoken and it triggers us, we can say, wow, that really triggered me, or wow, that really hurt. I need a moment to be with that so I can make sense of it for myself. So we need to not be afraid to hit the pause button and just be like, hey, and as couples come together, making agreements around, okay, when we hit something that doesn't work for us, like how do we want to approach it? How do we want to sit down and talk about this? And then also recognizing that sometimes you've talked about it and processed it, and there's no more that can be said about it, and so let it be for a little bit. Allow it the space and time to be integrated so you can find an approach with it. Because sometimes things can be much simpler than we think it needs to be. And so holding space that, sometimes we might just need to speak it, and that's all that needs to happen. And there's no follow-up or action needed. We just need to be heard. And then other times there is follow-up and there is action that's needed or some kind of response that's needed.
What amazing advice. I mean, it really, you're so terrific, and you are so inspirational. You really are. I mean, not just to me, but to so many people. And truly what I said, we've had, guest after guest on the show of the top experts in the world, one more profound and more riveting than the next, and the work is incredible. And I've had the opportunity to work with so many people and be glorified and enjoy so many people. But your energy it's just different. From the time I first met you, there is something in you that, you so open your heart and share your heart, and now you're able to teach other people how to open their hearts and share their hearts. It's such an incredibly profound and loving level. And so I so highly recommend that people jump on your teleseminar on Wednesday. And I know I'm traveling, but I'm going to try to jump on as well, because I would love to be able to continue listening and this work with you, and that people find you, and especially if you're getting married, or if you are married, or if you've been married a couple times and the communication thing hasn't worked for you. And this is, you want to learn these tools and techniques and these keys, and want to have these words and these sentences and these doorways and paths and windows and entrances to being able to say what you're thinking and feeling, and being able to share and express in a way that it's finally being heard, and that you feel safe about talking about everything. And so I'm just so thrilled that you're doing what you're doing, and that the person on the planet doing what you're doing is you, because I can't think of a better person to do that. And, as you inspire others, I want to ask, what inspires you?
There was one is my own personal journey of healing, and healing my relationship toward the masculine and toward men, and within myself as a woman. And then I was out at Burning Man in 2007, and we brought out there the Gaia Maitreya Goddess Temple. And we created this beautiful space dedicated to women. And within this space, we had a throne in there was 2 domes, and within the center of one of the domes was this throne, and it was the goddess throne, and it was for women to come in and feel empowered. And there was a time that I sat in that throne and watched what was happening. We had altars to different goddesses around the space, and person after person, watching the women come through the door and falling to their knees and just being so grateful for the space that honored them. And then simultaneously watching men come through the door and fall to their knees in awe and reverence for the goddess. And it inspired me to believe that we, all people want to be able to have healthy relationships with each other. And there was one brother that fell to his knees in front of the throne as I was sitting there, and he said, I know we can do better than this. I don't know how to get there, but I know we can get there. And that was a really deeply touching and inspiring moment for me to see this man want the same thing that I want. And so many people want, of being able to have healthy relationships with each other, to have fulfilling connections, and that depth of connection that we can get when we work together and open ourselves to be vulnerable and to be seen into. And so it's that hope and that knowing that we will get there, and it will be beautiful. And we are the creators of this. And so we get to take what has come before us and build on it and make it better for future generations. And so we can have these enriching lives that we so desire.
Mm-hmm. What a beautiful answer. Really, how very stunning. And so your class on Wednesday, tell us once again how we register for that.
Mm-hmm. So you can go to my website, speaking-the-unspeakable.com, and you can get more information there. You can also email me directly, speakrain, R-A-I-N, like the weather, @gmail.com. And I am happy to register people and have a conversation with people to, one of the things that I like to do within my work is to make sure that it is addressing the specific needs of the people who come. And so, and it's often fun when I, plan out the workshop and then I get in and I ask people questions about what they want to get, or, just hear from people, and it's fun how it aligns, and then also how it also shifts. And so, I love to connect with people and make things very poignant and pertinent to their everyday lives, because that's really the heart of this work, is that it can be lived and walked every day, and that it can be fulfilling and, again, enriching, because life is so rich and abundant with such beauty, and the only thing that holds us back from that is us. And so when we're willing to, be the fool at the edge of the unknown, because a lot of this is unknown for us, and to have the courage to move forward in it, we can do that together, and we can support each other. And I particularly like working with women, because there's so much there for us to gain and lead the way. And as women step into their leadership within their voice, within the home, within our communities, and within business, the more that we're able to do this in a powerful way that's in alignment with the feminine and really bring the gorgeousness of that out, the more that everything will be served in life. We hold so many keys within us as women for the family, for our communities. And even, in business and politics, that the more we can claim our voice, the quicker things will shift, and life can be that beautiful experience that we know it can be.
That's great. Now we only have a couple of minutes left, and we always ask our guests at the end of the show for a definition of a word. Deirdre Hay did marriage and vow, and we've had harmony. And so what to you does this communication mean?
So communication is the external expression of our internal world. that internal world. And so it is a reflection of who we are on the inside that gets spoken out to create connections with the external world, with each other, with our communities. And so it's also the paint that we use to paint the world. It is both the framework and the paint that gives it such texture and richness that makes it engaging.
What a beautiful definition. I'd love to use that on our website. That was just gorgeous, just absolutely breathtaking. And it's been so magical having you here, and such an honor and such a blessing. And I love the work that you're doing. I truly do. And I just think that for everybody that's here on the show right now, there isn't a single person that doesn't have the desire to say what's in their heart. And not only to say it, but to have it be received in such a joyous and such an open and such a loving way. And the words that you share and the phraseology and the way that they flow and the essence in which and the intent in which they're spoken is just really magic. It's really love. It's really light energy that's just coming out of the breath. And so so beautiful and incredible work. And it was so nice to have you on the call, and such a joy. And truly you are one of my favorite people on the planet. So I'm so happy that you're doing this. Thank you so much, Nicole. And that you're here, and just wonderful.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for supporting women in having the knowledge and the tools and the resources to have fulfilling relationships, and to, I think love is such a beautiful gift in our world for us to experience, and that you support people, especially women and even men, in having meaningful connections and beautiful relationships. I deeply bow to you and the work that you're doing, and thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. So thank you for being with us, Amanda. So Amanda Rain, and find her. Okay. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Nicole.
Okay. What a beautiful guest. I mean, amazing work. Just absolutely amazing work. And that is something that we're working with everybody on, and how to write your vows, how to say those words that are in your heart, and how to be able to not only say those words, but live those words and live a life that those words have the essence and the meaning of. And so I love being able to speak the unspeakable, and especially sexually being able to share your fantasies and your secrets and your desires and the tools and the techniques and how to do that and how to navigate those difficult conversations. Everything that she shared was just so wonderful and so glorious. So what a thrill, speaking the unspeakable. And next week we have one of the funniest people I know, a whole different energy, and we have Yakov Smirnov, and the Russian comedian who is beloved by not just this country but around the world. And we went to see his show last night at the Acme Theater here in Hollywood in Los Angeles, and he is hysterical. Tears are rolling down people's eyes as they're laughing, and you're holding your ribs. I mean, he truly is funny as he talks about relationships, and he talks about love, and everything that he says is so true, but yet it's so funny. And so it's my birthday, and that's what I wanted to do, was to go see Yakov. And so a group of us went to see his show, and I have to tell you, it was just one of the best nights of my life. He is just amazingly hysterical. So hang on to your hats next week for laughter, fun, laughter, and love, and joy, and bliss, and happiness. And you really will, it will brighten your world and brighten your life, and you will be able to laugh with your partner, which is always the very first quality. People are looking for humor, and how to have that and keep that alive in a relationship. So that's going to be so very, very, very special. So it's wonderful to have you with us today. Again, we want to thank Amanda Rain for her just glorious words and how to share and to communicate. And we couldn't be more excited and thrilled to have Yakov Smirnoff as our guest next week. So I'm wishing you all an amazing week. This is Nicole Brandon from Hourglass Bride, wishing you